I'm Dean Zelinsky, and this is the podcast. Okay, welcome.
Back at it.
Back at it. We have a special guest today.
This is our second back-to-back guitar tech episode.
Yeah, they're not exactly back-to-back, though.
Well.
Okay, but maybe recording-wise they are. But we have Jeff Mallard today.
Yes.
And Jeff, I know Jeff as Johnny Winter's tech.
Yes.
For many, many years. And that's where we met. But Jeff's also done some other...
He's got a pretty good artist roster.
Okay, take it away, Parker.
Mr. Big, working for both Paul Gilbert and Billy Sheehan. Richie Kotzen, also teching for Steve Vai's band on drums and bass teching. And I think maybe there was a Ted Nugent name drop earlier. And
well, vegans don't like Ted.
Yeah, well.
But I used to know Ted and talk to Ted and things. And
This
like
is
that, but
tech for multi-virtuoso, every guitar player that a guitar play, the guitar player's guitar player.
Well, I wasn't Ted's tech. I was a stage manager in bass tech. Bass tech for Greg Smith.
Okay, that's
What's
cool.
up, Greg?
But as far as Billy, Paul, Richie,
Yeah, those are my guys.
Johnny.
Yeah,
Cool. Okay. Anyways, today's the Johnny Winter podcast, even though we're going to talk about some other things.
Awesome.
So Jeff is really cool, and I'm going to start out and ask Jeff a question because he's got a kind of a cool story.
Okay.
He started out like all of us wanting to be a rock star, like me and you and everybody.
Yeah.
Everybody who listens.
It's good work if you can get it.
Yeah, everyone wants to be a rock star.
And the drinks are free.
Right.
Yes.
But he got waylaid like most of us, and he became a guitar tech. So kind of interesting story about you dropped out of school and
Yeah.
tell us a little.
Well, as soon as I found out they said that there's this test called the GED.
Yeah.
And I said, well, wait, you mean I could just take a test and I don't have to come back here anymore? Like in one day? And they said, yeah, well, you got to take some prep classes. I said, just give me the test. I took it one day, passed it, and off to LA I went with my band.
You were living in Orange County at that time?
I was, South Orange County. Yeah.
Okay. So you drop out of school, you take the test.
Yeah.
And then you're living in Hollywood
Yeah,
trying
I
to be a
moved
rock
right to
star.
Hollywood and got a job, and then and my best friend Kevin, and who was my bass player, we moved up there together, and we both got jobs immediately. I got a job at a place called Fred Siegel on Melrose, which they hired guys with long hair from the warehouse.
Isn't that a dance studio?
You would kind of, I guess.
What was it?
There's something, but they, rock stars would come in there, models. It was a pretty high end, store and a pretty hip, place. Anyway,
You mean a clothing store?
it was a clothing store.
Okay.
They sold a bunch of different shit too, and my friend Kevin got a job at Studio Instrument Rentals at S.I.R. So we come back after our first days of work. We got jobs like immediately, and come back to our little studio apartment. Hey man, how was your day? How's your job? And it's like, he's like, oh great. I set up, for, I forget who the artist was, but he told me, he goes, I set up at the Tonight Show, and I just couldn't get my head around it. I said, wait, what do you mean? Like, what is it what's the job that you got? And he says, well, we take a bunch of band gear. We drive it over to some place and we set it up. I said, there's a job for that? The fucking Tonight Show? And it was like for some huge artist, So I actually went to S.I.R. And I got a job and I worked there for like 2 days. And at the time I kind of remember, I was like, well, I want to work with like a bunch of sweaty dudes, or I want to see like a bunch of supermodels. So I stayed with the job I had. But
you didn't dump Fred Siegel?
I didn't dump Fred Siegel. No. I stayed there for a little while, and then funny enough, my friend Kevin left S.I.R., went to Fred Siegel, and I went to S.I.R.
Oh, wow.
Eventually. So I started at Studio Instrument Rentals, and I loved it. Driving a van, delivering Marshalls to stages, microphones, what you name it, drum sets, and I learned how to hook up gear and build a drum kit and Hammond B3s and Wurlitzers, all kinds of gear. So I got really into that.
Cool.
So
Yeah,
how old were you at that point?
I was probably like 23 or 24.
Okay.
I was 24. I also just prior to that too, I think I was telling you this last night, that you moved to Hollywood, and in those days, what's the ultimate, goal? You want to get a record deal.
Right.
And so how do you get a record deal? Well, you play, there's one way. And I thought, well, what if I just go work at the record company?
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe I could, just get myself a deal. That was the thinking. And
You
just
could-
kind
you
of
could-
cut out all that work. And
You
just,
could become an
I'd sign myself.
become an A&R guy.
So
You can't sign yourself from the mailroom, by the way.
Well, I got a job working for the A&R person at Elektra Records, which then led to,
Do you remember his name? Which
it was a lady named Carol Childs.
she
was the West Coast.
I'm going to be
Yeah,
canceled. Do you remember her name?
Carol Childs.
Okay, very good.
Anyway, so I was there just for like a short time, and then I went to Polygram Records, and that was right around the time that they had like Tom Waits and Soundgarden and Temple of the Dog had just come out.
Okay.
And, so like my job there was to call like radio stations and just cool stuff like that. I was really into. You get free posters and CDs, which I would just turn around and go sell at like Aaron's Records for like gas money and food, and then I got a job at Zoo Entertainment, which had Tool were just starting to make their Undertow record. So I was actually had a paid internship at Zoo Entertainment, and this was like in '93. So that was kind of a great experience. Tool were just kind of coming up, and Rage Against the Machine and these type of bands, and so anyway, and then I got and I didn't really get the whole record company thing. There was a lot of fake people there, and a lot of people. I remember my boss she was actually pretty cool, and she would say, "Watch out for anybody that calls you buddy," and so and I forget who it was that told me, because S.I.R. had moved from, they were at the old Sunset Gower location, where they had these big sound stages with a lot of history at this place. But then S.I.R. like kind of vanished, and they were like kind of down by the airport or something for a while. So I never knew what had happened to S.I.R. And a buddy of mine had said, oh no, S.I.R. they're at the old Directors Guild building just down Sunset, and so I went down there and I walked in and I got a job, and I never really looked back. That was like in early like '94.
Cool.
Yeah. So yeah, S.I.R. is a great place. If you want to be a roadie, start there. That's what I would say.
Did you start picking up touring gigs through that, or how did you kind of translate into being a
I
tech?
did. Eventually, like basically, you're a cartage driver first. You're just a guy just delivering gear. Mm-hmm. And they little by little they'll show you like how to how things get, you just catch on, like how to hook up whatever it would be, how to program a chord keyboard or whatever. And then so I did that for a couple of years, doing all kinds of gigs. You name it. It could be, you could go to the Forum, which I did, for like Jimmy Page and Robert Plant, deliver a Hammond B3. You just kind of drop it off, but you kind of get to hang out and like watch,
right?
And then you do some movie star's kid's birthday party in the Hollywood Hills. It just ran the gamut. So you got a lot of experience doing different load-ins and load-outs, knowing how to load trucks, knowing how to case stuff up. So I did that for a few years, and then a guy named Paul Chavarria was working for Lionel Richie and had hired me to go to Dubai to the International Air Show. And he said, "Do you have a passport?" And I said, "No." And he said, "Well, go get one." And so I went and I got a passport, and I came back, and over a course of a week or whatever it was. And my first kind of touring gig was going to Dubai, Saudi Arabia with Lionel Richie.
That's a pretty good.
And I remember he said, so it pays $1,500 a week, and my mouth just like dropped. I was like, "Holy shit, really?" Yeah, like he's like, "I know that's a lot of money for a kid like you," and I was like, "A lot? That's like it's gonna take care of me for a while." So yeah, I was like, "I'm in. What else do I got to do?" And then also around the same time, I was supposed to go to Spain with a band called the Plimsolls. Do you guys remember the Plimsolls? Like an LA band. They did this song, "A Million Miles Away."
Okay.
Great band. Peter Case was the singer. I ended up like working for him for a while. So yeah, like my first kind of touring bands were Berlin, the Bill Ward Band, the Plimsolls, Lionel Richie, and then and I was supposed to work for Lionel Richie on the Millennium, the New Year's Eve, right? Remember, do you guys remember when like the world was supposed to end or something like that, or the computer thing?
Y2K.
20
Y2K.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Year 2000.
Yeah.
Whoa.
So
That was right before 2001.
I started with Mr. Big in 1999. It's actually 25 years almost to like the date.
Okay.
Like to right now, you know.
Wow.
And
I can't believe these bands are that old. Like Mr.
I
Big
know,
doesn't.
they're
yeah.
even older than that. Sorry guys, but you are. I mean, they're on their farewell tour right now, which is, you know, great that they're out there still doing it. But yeah, so I remember the tour manager of Mr. Big, you know, we did a couple of US runs, and then I had this Lionel gig on the side. And I told the tour manager, well, I have to go to Las Vegas on New Year's Eve to do a Lionel Richie show. They hired me for that. And he goes, no, man. He goes, we're opening for Aerosmith in Osaka, at Osaka Dome. He's like, and I was like, yeah, but I already took. He goes, you're going to want to do the Mr. Big thing. Trust me. You know, the Lionel thing's a one-off. We're going to be out for a while. So I did. So I bailed on the Lionel thing and got my buddy, actually Stefan, to do it and to fill in for me.
I got a question.
Yeah.
Did Lionel ever forgive you?
He didn't know who the hell I was. No. Yeah. Though I did work for him one time, like afterwards too. We did like some radio promo stuff, like where I went around with like his keyboard and driving, you know, and meeting him at radio stations, and he'd play like a song. He was really cool. Lionel was a
Good dude.
slick guy, good guy.
Right.
And so yeah, that was off to the races of doing Mr. Big at Osaka Dome on the Millennium, and nothing happened that night. The world didn't change.
Yeah.
We just
played a show and that was it.
played a show, that was
Everyone
it.
thought it was doomsday, and
Yeah.
nothing happened
And
anywhere.
Mr. Big were huge too in Japan. By
Yeah,
the way.
aren't they still colossal over there? Yeah.
We just did Japan. We just did 2 Budokan's over the summer, and then a whole Southeast Asia run. And but you know, of course, I'll never forget that New Year's Eve. You know, it was huge.
Right.
It was Aerosmith. You know, we were opening for Aerosmith. I walked into Osaka Dome. I couldn't believe how massive the stage was and everything. So it was a lot of fun.
Cool.
So Richie was playing then, right?
And Richie was playing. Richie Kotzen was the guitar player in the band then. Yeah.
Okay. At what point did Paul rejoin then?
I think Paul like rejoined in I think like 2009, but by then I had already been working for Johnny Winter, so that kind of, you know, they did a few tours, and then, you know, jumping ahead a little bit, I left Johnny in like 2014, I think it is, and went to go see Richie Kotzen at the Baked Potato, and then he hired me. He said, I'm going to need a tech for the Winery Dogs, which then led back to Mr. Big when Billy asked me, hey, you want to go to Japan with us? You know, and that's when I started kind of working for Paul.
That's cool.
In that, you know, I don't know what you call it, Mark III of, the Deep Purple thing.
So what's it like being a tech? By the way, you used the term roadie. Back in the day, everyone was a roadie.
Well, there's an old saying that we're not that smart, but we can lift heavy things.
But then nowadays, you're called techs.
Yeah.
And it's a good gig, and you make a lot of money.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It's
Very thankful for it. I mean, who knows? You know, I'd probably have a really shitty job if I didn't have this. Yeah.
Okay. So I think we got to talk about Johnny Winter.
Sure.
Yeah.
Mama talk to your daughter. Mama talk to your daughter. Mama talk to your daughter. Oh yeah, oh yeah. Baby lover, ain't gonna leave me.
For those watching, you need to understand that at the shop, Dean listens to 2 artists, Johnny Winter or Johnny Winter. Like, that's the joke we crack every day. If you watch our Instagrams, you know, there's posts of all the guitars we're building and going out the door. And he literally 99% of the time plays just Johnny Winter. So this is kind of a big deal, you know, for Dean. And what else is funny is Paul Gilbert's like arguably in my top 3. So we're both geeking out over here. It's pretty cool.
Right.
But let's talk about Johnny Winter and your story.
Okay. So when you're growing up and you're playing guitar and you're 12, 13 years old and you hear Johnny Winter, first of all, like in the old days, everyone either wanted to be a lead guitar player or a rhythm guitar player because bands had like rhythm players and lead players. Right. And I heard Johnny Winter and I'm like, I want to be a lead player because that guy just played endless lead solos. So this goes back to the days when I was taking lessons from Paul Hamer, which we talked about.
That's wild.
A few episodes ago, and learning about guitar players, and I get introduced to Johnny Winter, and I just hear this incredible, like, lead sound. And I'm like, I want to be like Johnny Winter. So I started learning all his licks.
Yeah. The sound of Johnny.
Is
so, you know, identifiable. From his guitar sound to his voice,
he had a signature voice, which nobody really ever talked about.
Yeah.
His guitar playing was only half of it.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was cool. And I mean, I wanted to, you know, be like Johnny Winter.
Yeah.
Okay. Plus his look. Okay. I mean, I had Johnny Winter posters all over. You know, I was a typical teenager, you know, Johnny Winter posters, all his albums. And Johnny Winter, it was kind of like a tough guy to be a fan of because drugs were a big part of his life. Yeah. And he would like disappear for a while. It wasn't like somebody coming out with an album every year or two, you know?
Right.
So you'd wait, and Johnny'd be in rehab and all that stuff. It's been quite a story, I think, you know, back then.
Sure.
Just a roller coaster.
Yeah. Yeah, he put himself in rehab in New Orleans in like the early 70s, I guess, you know, the story goes. He got, you know, pretty wrapped up in heroin, which was, you know, kind of common, you know, also back then. Right. But I think he said, you know, once he kind of realized that he thought he could just do it and you know, be cool and stuff. And he said once he realized that it had a hold of him, he put himself in rehab and he kind of disappeared for a little while.
Right. So you talked to him about those days?
Yeah, I did. I mean, sorry, this just popped into my head, but that's
what we do here.
I asked him, I said, you guys know the Chelsea Hotel, right? You know, in New York City. It's kind of a famous place, especially in that era. Right. And I asked Johnny one night, I said, Johnny, were you ever part of that Chelsea hotel scene? You know, did you ever stay there? He goes, oh, yeah. He goes, I found heroin under my bed one time when I stayed there. I go, oh, yeah? I go, well, what'd you do with it? He goes, I stuck it up my butt. I said, why'd you do that? He goes, it works faster.
Oh,
jeez. I was like, wow. You guys are hardcore, man. Yeah, they were always, you know, dropping LSD and stuff. You know,
there were stories back in the day, like this one record company executive that his chick he blew out his nose from doing cocaine. So the story was that his secretary had to blow it up his ass with a straw. And that was her part of her job.
Yeah.
So I forgot which record company.
Put that on the resume.
Yeah.
Under skills.
So anyways, my experiences in I think it was 1973, Johnny Winter and Live is coming to Chicago.
Yeah.
Okay, with Derringer and the whole thing. And this is what I'm pissed about. I'm not pissed, but I wear this shirt a lot. One of my customers gave this to me.
That's a good one.
And it's Johnny Winter flipping off the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Oh, yeah.
And Johnny got coined a blues player, which is probably what he liked. But in 1973, 74, he was anything but a blues player.
Yeah.
Playing arenas in front of a stack of Marshalls,
a
wall of Marshalls, and strutting around on stage.
Yeah.
And he was 6'12", this thick, I mean this thin.
Yeah.
He had that what we call, what was it, a drug? He had the druggy look or whatever, which was kind of cool back then. You know? He wore bell bottoms.
He had cool clothes.
So anyways, I go to the show. My friend Matt, who I named the ML after, he had just gotten his driver's license, and we're going to the rock show, the Johnny Winter show, down at the Chicago Amphitheater. which was a huge venue. I mean, they used to have the what do you call it, the bullfighting and all that stuff going on, or rodeos down there. It was huge. So we go down there to see Johnny Winter, and I thought I saw God. It was like amazing.
Yeah.
And Johnny is strutting around on stage. He had his Firebird, and there was a chick on stage. Okay, and who was the chick?
Susan.
Susan Winter.
Yeah.
I think I knew it at the time. It was his girlfriend. It was wife. It was his wife at the time, or was it?
I think she's just a girlfriend. Yeah.
Okay. And they're both wearing shoes like 10 inches high.
Yeah, big old platforms.
Long bell
73
bottoms.
platforms.
And she's going around, just strutting around. It was almost like a drug-induced state, you know?
Yeah.
It's Johnny and
Could have been.
it's Johnny and Rick Derringer. I've seen Johnny get carried onto stages, and he was also couldn't see. So half the time you didn't know.
No, I've done it.
Okay, yeah, I've seen you do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you didn't know if he's being carried on.
He actually weighed a lot too.
What's that?
He actually was pretty heavy.
Yeah, in the later.
He tried dead weight as.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But he was probably 130 pounds back then. 6'9" or whatever.
Beanpole.
Anyway, so he's playing these endless riffs. The sound is like just incredible. And he's taking his guitar headstock and he's like kind of following Susan around the stage.
Yeah.
And he's running the headstock between her legs and stuff. To a 15-year-old kid, it was like, whoa, Anyways, it was the most amazing show.
That's good work if you can get it.
Yeah. It was the most amazing show.
Yeah.
For a 15-year-old kid. And I think that was a pivotal
It's just
thing in my
amazing
life.
that you actually saw him. And
Yeah, a lot of people never
days.
saw
Prime.
that.
Yeah.
They saw him later. I mean, and I saw him like my wife. I take her to see Johnny later.
Yeah.
And I said, well, you haven't seen Johnny because it was a whole different animal.
right.
Yeah, all right, y'all ain't lying. This feels good to me. Yeah, baby used to stay out all night long.
But like I said, it changed my life to some point. I think a lot of people have a thing that happens to them sometime in their life that just, this is a game changer. That was
was
mine.
it.
And I said, somehow I knew I had to be in rock and roll the rest of my life.
Yeah.
And
Also,
You got the bug.
when
Yeah.
he initially got signed, didn't he hold the world record at that time for the highest signing bonus of like any artist ever?
yeah, he signed a deal with CBS, and he was
Clive Davis signed him to Columbia.
Columbia.
Yeah, Clive Davis signed him personally.
Okay, and it was the biggest contract ever done.
Yeah, I think up to that point for that type of artist.
That's
yeah.
incredible,
I
yeah.
want to say it was like $600,000,
And then adjust for inflation, it's like, whoa.
which was a lot, obviously a lot back then.
Right.
But yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so we got to get back to the shirt.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Johnny Winter has not been inducted in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Sure.
And I don't really care about the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame because I think the fact that they haven't inducted him, I don't care about that.
Shows you what
Yeah,
you're
dealing with.
Yeah.
And listen, nothing wrong with Dolly Parton. She's a great entertainer.
And good for her that she spoke up and said, "I don't really belong in the rock. I'm not rock
Yeah,
and roll."
right. Yeah.
She said, "I'm honored, but
But hold on. How does Dolly Parton get in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame?
how does Jay-Z?"
Yeah. They need to just call it the Music Hall of Fame. Yeah.
Run DMC, the whole thing. And Johnny Winter, who played arenas, had the biggest deal ever.
Yeah.
He personified rock.
Yeah, man.
I mean, he was like rock.
Dude, just to add a little light onto like his stature. So like supposedly John Lennon and Yoko had a framed photo in the Dakota of Johnny Winter on the wall, like all these years.
Well, that's amazing because I got one in my apartment downtown.
Another cool thing is that I heard, when the Stones did the Hyde Park gig in 1969, which kind of was like right after Brian Jones had died, they opened up with "I'm Yours," the Johnny Winter song.
I'm yours and I'm hers.
Yeah, the Stones opened up. The Stones, I mean, that's like 1969. They were already hip to how badass Johnny Winter is.
Yeah.
They open up with one of his songs.
Right.
I mean, there's kind of these other crazy connections to huge superstars, but Hendrix, Hendrix loved Johnny Winter.
Right. There's pictures of him.
There's pictures of him.
Yeah.
I think Hendrix even said, somebody asked him, "How does it feel to be the world's greatest guitar player?" He said, "I don't know. Ask Johnny Winter."
Right.
Jimi Hendrix.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who is the second world's greatest guitar player?
And one time too, we were walking Johnny off stage, and Johnny was like, "Man, I'm good. Man, that was really great." And it could have been a shit show. Who knows? I don't remember, but Johnny was pretty. He was like, "Man, I really played really good." We're like, "Yeah, you did." He was like Elvis, "Yeah, you did." A bunch of yes men, right? "Yeah, you're the best, Johnny." He's like, I think I might be the best. Well, Hendrix might be the best, but he's dead. So that's what he said one night to walk on stage. And then all of a sudden he just turned and it just goes, "Hey, is my tuna fish sandwich ready?"
Okay.
funny.
Well, I got to say one more thing about the Rock and Roll Hall
Yeah.
of Fame. Okay.
All right.
And this is a statement about all shows. Okay, like the Grammys and things like that. You can't mistake those for like, what do you call it? Award shows. Okay, they're TV shows with
Yeah.
a producer and advertisers. Okay,
Sure.
they're not. The awards are secondary. These are
Yeah.
all about making money and and that's why every year at the Grammys you got the same people, Beyonce, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
And if you notice, they're singing shows. So they literally take the model of American Idol.
Yeah.
And that's what they are. You don't know, there's no bands on stage. Like in the old days, you'd see a
Well, look at
band.
the halftime show yesterday, like we were saying.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. But in the old days,
Terrible.
but you knew the drummer. Yeah, that was terrible.
Good Lord.
What
was that?
By the way, I got to say, I'm half asleep. We did picked Jeff up at 7 a.m. yesterday. It was Super Bowl Sunday.
Yeah.
All night.
We were ripping it.
Yeah, and then today, I ran 2 lasers all day at the shop. I don't know what happened, but I literally ran. I'm literally back and forth. And the next thing you know, it's 7, 8 hours later. I'm like,
Remind me too, because I have a Rock and Roll Hall of Fame story with Johnny.
okay.
But you go ahead.
So, anyways, if I'm a little tired and slurring,
Yeah.
It's understandable.
it's been a rough 24 hours.
Yeah.
Starts with him showing up at 7 a.m. But anyhow, I'm
me
just
up?
saying,
Cool.
if you notice, if you look at these shows, nobody knows there's no drummer, nobody knows a drummer's name on the show or a bass player's name on the show or a keyboard player, except for Billy Joel, or a keyboard player. There's no bands. They're singing shows.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
And they have the same people who
There's a
sell
bunch of
tickets.
cheerleaders.
So, anyways, do not mistake the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame for anything but a TV show.
Yeah.
Right.
With a producer and advertisers and all this stuff. And same with the Grammys and all the other bullshit
I forget-
shows on TV.
There was some big artist who hasn't won yet, and they asked him about it, and he was like, "Well, I don't need to be in there because I have multiple diamond records. That's your proof of popularity is your
Yeah.
actual track record,
So it's bullshit, okay, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
right.
We all can
I mean,
agree?
I also sometimes, feel that way about the Grammys, but just like in that movie Almost Famous, where they're, Rolling Stone magazine is like, who cares about Rolling Stone magazine except it'd be really cool to be on the cover.
Yeah, yeah,
You know,
fair
so
enough.
like,
fair
I
enough,
could
yeah.
give, fuck the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, but it'd be cool to be in there too.
Okay.
I get it,
okay.
yeah.
So
Well, they don't deserve
One day-
they don't deserve Johnny, but go on.
we're driving through, and I'm like, oh, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame's coming up. We're driving through Cleveland, and I don't know if we had a show there or something, but we might have been, passing through, and so we peel off, and we're in the 1-800 Cruise America RV that we toured in with Johnny, and we drive it. we're going to go take Johnny to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. This is when he started coming out of his shell and wanted to actually see sunlight.
Yeah, we got to go back to that. But
Yeah. So we go, and this is on the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame like tip. Like we go, we can't find parking, so there's this, it's the big triangle. I don't know if you guys have been there. Or
Yeah,
not,
been there.
And there's a big, just giant area out front. We just pull the RV up right to like the front door, because that's usually what we would do for Johnny, so he didn't have to walk, or too far or anything. And security just surrounds the thing, SWAT team. I mean, they go crazy, like we're gonna blow the. And I can understand, it's like a U-Haul pulling up in front of, the IRS or something.
It's like the Oklahoma City bomb.
Totally. Yeah. And so they come out, and I get out. I'm wearing a top hat and looking, all shitty. And they said, "Hey man, you can't park. You can't park." And I said, "Hey man, we got Johnny Winter in here." And they go, and everything just stops. They go, "Really? You got Johnny Winter in there?" And it's just like instantly, they're just like, "No shit." And we're like, "Yeah, he wants to come in and see all the blues shit." And so, it just flips, So and we said we're gonna need a wheelchair, because Johnny didn't want to walk around, so we'll wheel him around. We always had wheelchairs in airports and stuff like that. So, but they get him. There's a wheelchair. The curator guy comes down himself, and he comes. He goes, "Really, Johnny Winter's in there in this thing?" And
Hey, should we talk about that? He toured in a camper, and that was really fucked up.
it was just a
His
shit
manager,
box on wheels.
his manager took him around in a camper.
Yeah,
We're not going to talk about that, are we?
yeah. It drove me insane.
Okay.
It's really tough, doing all those thousands of miles, in that thing.
Right.
And where you can't lay down, you can't sleep, you have to just sit up, the whole time.
Yeah.
And also, we traveled by day.
I rode in that camper with Johnny.
Did you?
Yeah. I got a
Pictures of you, yeah.
Oh, yeah, and not only that, but I autographed Johnny's guitar. He's like, this is weird. Normally people are asking for my autograph. But he wanted me to autograph his guitar. So I think it's on tape.
So we
Yeah.
bring Johnny into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame there in Cleveland. The main dude is taking Johnny. He's like a kid in the candy store, right? He can't wait to show Johnny all this stuff. He's a huge fan, all that. So Johnny just wants to see the blues stuff. And so we do. We go to there's like a blues part of it. He sees like Muddy's like red Telecaster, and he's getting right up close to like the window. He's looking at it like this, going, "That's not Muddy's guitar." So he's just right off the bat, he doesn't believe that that's Muddy's guitar. We're like, "Dude, it's fucking Muddy's. It's the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame." It's like, and it's like we're all kind of like, because Johnny played it. He knew that guitar.
Johnny was a sharp guy.
He's sharp. He wasn't dumb
sharp
at all.
as a tack.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Total music historian too. Knew all kinds of stuff about it. And so we would, we were taking him around. He sees like Elmore James's guitar. I mean, Howlin' Wolf. Hubert Sumlin, and so he's digging it and everything. And then so we kind of get to the end of it, and he's ready to go. He's just like, "All right, go watch The Simpsons on the RV." And then
What was
Have you seen the clip of him in The Simpsons?
yeah,
Where Homer
amazing.
runs him over?
Yeah. That's amazing.
Die, you chalk-faced goons!
It's funny.
But what were
That
his
was his favorite show.
his two favorite shows? Simpsons. What else I forgot what's the other one he watched?
I don't know. All in the Family was way up there. All in
Okay,
the Family, or
right.
like Happy Days.
Right.
So-
Happy Days.
Yeah.
Okay,
It's like,
go on.
yeah.
Yeah.
And so this guy at the Hall of Fame, he's like, "Oh, well, wait. We just got a couple of new pieces in. I really want to show you." So going through the blues thing, Johnny's calling him out already on stuff. That's not the guitar Muddy played. That's not the real one, And this, and the guy, you can tell that the guy's getting super bummed out, And so he's, "Oh, just let me, show you a couple more things." So he says, "We just got this in like this week or something." It was Dwayne Allman's Gold Top from Live at the Fillmore East, and so Johnny doesn't, he likes Dwayne, but he's like doesn't really care at this point. And he says, and the guy says, "Yeah, well, he recorded this. This is the guitar from Live at the Fillmore East." And Johnny goes, "Yeah, when he was opening up for me." and the curator doesn't, he doesn't know this. He's like, "Really?" He's grown up thinking like that was like the headlining show or something. He's like, "No, Johnny." He's like, No, dude, they were my opening band. And so he's like, all right. So we move on, and then he's got another thing. It's like Frampton Comes Alive. He's got the,
The Black Les Paul.
yeah, which I had heard actually got burned up or something. I hear a different story, but this guy's like showing us some black triple pickup, humbucking Les Paul, and he says, "So this is the Frampton Comes Alive guitar." And Johnny goes, "Yeah," when he was opening up for me. So Frampton Comes Alive was actually recorded opening for Johnny Winter.
I did not know that.
Yeah, pretty cool. So Johnny's just calling out everything.
Okay,
out.
so
fuck the
fuck
rock and
them
roll,
even
fuck
more.
the rock and roll.
Fuck
Okay,
them
you
even
guys don't know what
more.
you're a hard rock cafe at best.
Not even.
Not
Okay.
even.
Okay, fuck
They
them all.
don't have the sliders.
By the way,
The
you
chicken
know,
wings.
I call it like I see it all my life, and those guys are gonna never put one of my guitars in there. You know?
Oh yeah, well,
But you know
There'll
what?
already be a couple in there. Yeah.
Yeah, fuck them again. Okay.
yeah.
Oh, we're not supposed to swear. We're not supposed to say that shit on it. Okay.
Doesn't matter.
Okay.
Deanne has a bad track record of using clean language. Okay, so wait, you were saying that you had mentioned that Johnny was starting to quote, come back to life
Yeah.
around that area. So obviously, I mean, we know he had some drug issues and such. You had spoken earlier about him, unbeknownst to him, being weaned off of methadone, right?
Yeah. Well, so I'll back up. So I met Johnny through Eric Sardinas. Eric Sardinas was also is a great slide blues dobro, electrified dobro player. One of my best bros for years. And I met him because he was the opening act on a few of the Steve Vai tours that I did.
Okay.
And so we became friends, and I would go out on his solo tours. And a lot of times here we're in Chicago, which is ironic because me and Eric would go to the Old Town pub in Old Town Chicago, and we would sit there and have drinks. And Eric would tell me all these Johnny Winter stories. And in fact, I think that they recorded, Johnny recorded on Eric's first record, and Dick Sherman, who was the producer of all the Alligator era records of Johnny's, was I think the producer of that. Plus, he had Teddy Slatus was the manager of Eric, so there's a huge Johnny Winter connection there. And that's how I met Johnny. That's how I got turned on really, hardcore to Johnny. And so sorry, what was the question again?
It was, well,
How'd you get hooked up with Johnny?
That was it. Through Eric
sure,
Sardinas.
yeah, okay.
Right.
Yeah, and so when I started working for him, like I said, he was on a lot of prescription medication. He didn't really talk much. He didn't really do much. He was kind of like a vegetable,
And didn't you say he was even like kind of like either low key or high key blacklisted from like the House of Blues and stuff?
Yeah, at one point his show was so bad that even the House of Blues like sent him a letter saying we're not going to book this guy again.
Yeah.
Yeah, like he had gone way downhill, and so he was kind of when I joined up with them, he was kind of on the uphill swing again. He was kind of trying to resurrect, his career and getting more gigs. And so, yeah. And then little by little, the old manager was told by Leslie West, you should try, weaning him off of this methadone stuff. This the story.
Yeah.
So that happens. And yeah, little by little, this guy just kind of reappears. He's funny. He's, he can take a joke.
What you're talking about, Teddy?
Johnny.
But Teddy was the guy who started weaning him?
No,
Leslie.
the other
Yeah,
manager.
okay, the other man. Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
He got some advice from Leslie because Leslie was like hooked on, the stuff too, I guess.
I knew
Anyway.
I knew Leslie well.
Right. Yeah, he played your guitars.
Yeah. So
And I love Leslie West. I mean,
I loved
damn.
him for a while.
Well, I love his music.
Right.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. We did a tour together one time. It's my little Leslie West story, but he was in that was after he got his leg amputated, and he's in this really heavy, electric, wheelchair. So we're playing like in some big tent thing, and it's really humid. It's been raining all day, but inside the tent is humid. Everything's slippery, and there's this big loading ramp, one of those big semi ones. That's how you get off the stage, and especially if you're in a wheelchair, and then Leslie ends his show and just spins around and comes. He's coming right towards me. I'm standing right at the top of the ramp, and I'm like, oh fuck, I gotta make way, but like.
Ghost ride.
None of his guys are around, right? So none of his guys, and he's like going down the ramp. So I just hold on to the back of it and I start sliding with him halfway down the ramp. Halfway down, I'm like, this is gonna be horrible.
Not gonna end well.
Yeah. It's like I thought, oh my god, I'm gonna kill Leslie West right now. And so luckily, like we kind of grabbed and it was okay. But yeah, he would always kind of look over at me and he was kind of intimidating. He was kind of a big guy and. Not a very. I don't remember him being nice. His wife was lovely, but
the new wife.
Anyway, yes.
Yeah.
So anyway,
when with my split with Dean Guitars, didn't
Yeah.
Leslie?
he stayed with them.
It didn't go well. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But Leslie and I were tight. I brought him there. Okay.
Yeah.
And it was weird because he was supposed to open up for Shanker. Are we going to tell this story? But
Yep.
okay. So he was supposed to open up for Shanker, and Shanker had this. We'll do Michael Shanker another time.
Yes.
But this is Shanker is afraid to come to America because this chick is going to have him arrested. Okay. And by the way, I was tight with Shanker, and I was one of the few people who could talk Shanker into certain things. Okay.
Wait, arrested for the fire or whatever?
That's another story.
Okay.
But no, his ex-wife was
Okay.
always going to have him arrested. So I think they were married. Anyway, yeah. I mean, anyways, they had kids together. Kids together. So the promoter knows me and calls me up and he says, "Can you talk Michael into coming?" I'm like, touring, and I'm like, "I'll try." And anyways, I couldn't get him to tour. But then I said, "Hey, by the way, what's Leslie doing?" And he goes, "Oh, because Leslie was supposed to open for him." And I said, have Leslie call me. So Leslie calls me out of the blue. The tour never happened, but I put together the Leslie deal, guitar deal, at that point because of Michael Shanker not touring.
Yeah.
Although I probably would have seen him anyways. Got to him. So that was, but anyways, Leslie couldn't get out of his own way. He was really talented. He had a huge career. And all he had to do was give it a little extra effort and like put 2 mics on stage or something like that, which he would. I'm like, get the whole band singing. And anyways, he needed management. And I got him his last manager, which was Bob Ring. And Bob Ring was Zakk Wylde's manager. And I was negotiating to bring Zakk Wylde to Dean Guitars.
Yeah.
Which never happened.
What could have been?
But
What could have been?
Right.
They just did some Richie Kotzen just did some Leslie West.
I saw this. Yeah, like a
Memorial
tribute
out
show.
in
Yeah.
California.
Like a lot of other big
Canyon
people
Club,
in there.
Yeah. Pretty cool.
But anyways, I was sitting with Bob Ring. I said, "Can you help out Leslie? He needs management." And he took him on. But then there's other stories of Bob Ring. Like, forget that. Scrap that. So
yeah, so you were basically there for the upswing.
Yes. Yeah, that's where I was going with that.
I've got a question.
Yeah.
Can you personify Johnny Winter? Tell people what Johnny was like. Because I knew Johnny, but I didn't hang with
Live
Johnny.
with him, yeah.
Like you hung with Johnny. How would you describe him? There were 2 Johnnies. There was the old Johnny and the new Johnny.
Yeah.
I mean but under that was the same old Johnny.
Yeah, I mean, he was kind of a dirty old man. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Well, every one of his songs back in the day.
Yeah, I mean, he still
was a rebel. Yeah,
Yeah.
It's rock and roll.
Yeah. Yeah. He was, he was a dirty old man.
But beside that, I mean, his
He could be very sweet. He would very impatient.
short attention span.
Could really get pissed off pretty easily about stuff. Was pretty gullible, which would open up a whole can of worms about shit that used to happen.
Didn't serve him well. Yeah.
I mean, he always had to have a tuna fish sandwich after he got off stage.
That's so
fucking
weird.
Tuna fish on white bread. Johnny Winter, right? Albino, fucking about the whitest sandwich you could get, right? The fucking tuna fish on white bread and a can of Pringles, and so one night we get on the bus and we open up the fridge and we're like, fuck man, we don't have any tuna fish, but there's like this big vat of potato salad from like the gig before.
Oh my God.
And we're just like, well, and we take this scoop and put it on the white bread, smash it together, slice it in half just like he likes, put the Pringles on. He starts eating. He's like, "It's the fucking best tuna fish I've ever had."
Was it old enough that it smelled a little like tuna?
So he also like, you know, going with that whole placebo thing, right? We got him to stop smoking. Well,
Okay.
not me personally, but he stopped, you know, smoking cigarettes and weed, because he stopped smoking cigarettes, I think, but then he still smoked weed, and we got him off of all that. And once in a while, he could have, we thought, well, then edibles kind of started becoming a thing.
Yeah.
You know? So there's a a pot brownie. Okay, they've been around forever, but we give them a pot brownie and to settle them down, and so. And then at one point we were in an airport, and I just had bought randomly a cookie, which I never do, but those like black and white cookies.
Yeah.
So I'm eating one, and he's like looking at me like, dude, what do you got there? And I go, oh man, it's a cookie. He goes, is it a marijuana cookie? And I go, yeah, Johnny, it is. And he goes, really? He goes, give me some. So I just break him off like half, and I give it to him, and we're all sitting there waiting at the gate, and he's like looking over at me like 10 minutes later. He's like, "You feel anything yet, man?" I'm like, "Oh fuck, he thinks this is real."
Yeah.
And then I'm like, "No, not yet, Johnny." And 20 minutes later, "You feel anything?" I was like, "I think I do, bro." You know? And he's like, "Me too."
That's amazing.
And a half hour later, 30 minutes later, he's like, "Dude, I'm so high, Jeff." It was fucking great. And then it went off, and the manager's mind, and he's like, oh shit!
Well, now
this changes everything.
You just got to buy regular cookies now. Yeah.
Yeah. We don't have to.
And potato salad.
Yeah, we don't have to get them real. And then the other fucked up thing is there's a great story here too on the marijuana trip. But we're in Aspen, Colorado, at the Belly Up. Some fan had given the drummer had made them some homemade zucchini bread, but it was laced with like hash or something, and. So I'm not sure if he realized it or not, but he just puts it on the counter in the RV. Johnny's assistant at the time, we're setting up the stage, doing sound check, and all of a sudden the manager comes in and he's fucking livid, and he's like, "What have you guys done?" And I have no idea what he's talking about. I wasn't a part of this, but so I guess the assistant had gone, "Oh, Johnny, there's a nice zucchini loaf here," because he was like a German guy. He says, "Oh, dude, would you like some zucchini loaf?" Oh, Johnny's like, "Yeah, sure, what the hell?" He's like, "All right," he fucking cuts him a big old thing. Johnny looked like a feeder mouse, I went and they're like, "Dude, Johnny's so fucking high," and we're also at like this elevation that he can't even breathe, because we're in Aspen, and so we go in there, and he was just like all shriveled up, like, "Oh my God, Jeff, I'm so baked." It was hilarious, but also kind of frightening.
Right.
Yeah, his eyes, he was red, and his eyes were pink. And
Did the show get canceled?
Almost. Almost, man. It was pretty close. There was another time, too, in Europe.
Someone covering for him on stage?
Yeah, probably. Yeah, exactly.
playing all his riffs.
It was pretty close, but yeah, it was... I got yelled at. I was like, fuck, I don't have anything. I don't even know what you guys are talking about. But, that would happen. But, yeah, so... But Johnny could be swayed. There's a great story. He was really, you got to figure, you got a blind guy who's, still is the boss. But he can't see anything that's fucking really, happening or around him. It doesn't really, so, there's kind of a loss of control thing there. He's trying to keep control. So the watch was a big deal. Right. So he's like, it's 11 o'clock. Where's my tuna fish sandwich?
Right.
If it's 11:01, it's like, you're not doing your job, It's kind of like the brown M&M thing,
right.
The claws.
Yeah.
Right.
Totally that. And so one time we're in, and obviously the watch used to drive, the manager crazy because and all of us, because he would just kind of be like, showtime. You guys said it was going to be, I'm going on at 8 and it's 8:10, and what the fuck is going on? And so he'd start losing his mind, and he'd sit there and just start really getting angry, and so one time and he had like it was like a Swatch.
I was gonna ask, what was it?
It was just some shitty watch, that he had. But he every like 3 minutes he'd be staring at it, the old, just right up close. Like,
Yeah.
what time
By
is
the
it?
way, yeah, when you bring Johnny a guitar,
Yeah.
he's like looking at it, like
Yeah.
he's blind. So he's
Yeah.
like, and I made him a guitar. It was all engraved and had his name big engraved.
Yeah.
And he's like, Dean, this is the most beautiful guitar I've ever seen. I love this guitar, but it's literally up this close.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're in Switzerland, and I come out to, and there's also this reminds me that there was a weird schedule that he had. We basically Johnny lived in Connecticut, so East Coast time. We kept him on East Coast time no matter where we were in the world. And like even the gigs would be kind of, booked around that and travel and all this. It was pretty insane. And we come out, I come out to, we're in Switzerland and like Zurich, which is ironically where he passed away. But we come out and his manager goes, dude, the fucking watch broke. He's like, yes, right? So Johnny goes, well, sure, we can get a new one, right? And
Where are you going to find a
and the
watch
manager
in
goes,
Switzerland?
"Yeah, well, we're in Switzerland, Johnny. I don't think we can find a watch." And Johnny's like, "Really?" Like,
Swiss,
like
yeah.
thinking, like, he like believed him. He's like, "Yeah, man. Like Switzerland, like really hard to find watches." He's like,
Oh, my
"Well, maybe next
God.
town." Yeah. So
Yeah.
could be very gullible that way, and he could take a joke, you could poke fun at him, and as he opened up, once he started getting cleaned up, he was funny. He had a lot of great stories. He would talk about Muddy Waters and had Muddy. He'd come to Muddy's
lived
house here
through
in
all that
Chicago.
stuff,
Yeah,
yeah.
he'd come to Muddy's house in Chicago. Muddy would make him his famous gumbo, and was
And a tuna fish sandwich?
yeah.
Can you tell the fire story? That's a pretty good one.
Oh, that's a good one too.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Because there's footage of it out there. We'll superimpose it.
we carted around a Music Man 410 amp that was
it a combo amp?
Yeah,
Okay.
combo amp. He had a few of them from back in the day. If you look on some of the old videos or YouTube or whatever, you can see them in the there in the back line. So it's one of the one of the ones I remember being down in his basement and some of the old stuff was still there. I was like, wow, talk about Rock and Roll Hall of Fame or memorabilia. It's like, dude, I'm looking at the real Johnny Winter stuff from back in the day. And he started playing Music Mans because Muddy played Music Mans. So that's what he started doing. So he still had these old amps, carting this thing around, and we're in Austria. And one of the magnets off of the speaker had broken off. And I went to the manager and I said, hey man, like, look, this thing got, got broken off in the flight. And he said, I'll just put a piece of tape over it, and I was like, okay. It was like last minute that we all noticed that it was broken. It was just like, I just reached in there, plugged it in, and then it was later, I kind of looked, it was broken off, took this, that old shitty, duct tape.
Yeah.
And put it over like where, the thing had broken off, not really thinking, anything like, we'll play through 3 speakers and get through this gig and get out of here. We'll get it fixed later. And about halfway through the show, I look and there's a little plume of smoke coming out the back of the amp. And I was like, looking at it thinking, is that like, they got like fog here? Or like something like, what the fuck is that? And so the next thing I know, it's getting a little bit bigger. And there's video of this on YouTube. So you kind of see me run up to the back of it and the tape is on fire. It's like, you can see the embers around like the cone, and stuff. It's starting to smoke. And I don't really know what to do. It's hot, and I try and blow it out, which is ridiculous. But and I go, oh fuck, this ain't gonna work. So you see me actually run off stage to get what I have no idea. And by the time I turn around, the thing's literally it's an inferno going on. So Johnny doesn't know what's happening. I run back, and the amp's still working, but then
So a little hotter.
It's just a little running a little hot, and we take the guitar player had 2 Fender Twins, and so I pulled the cable out of Johnny's amp, plugged him into the other thing. There was just a little break. Johnny
Did he even know?
Johnny didn't really know. He kind of looks around at one point. He knows
Well, Johnny's sitting on a chair too,
he's
right?
just sitting on a chair.
He's not real mobile.
The amp's like right behind him, and
It's getting hot.
and so anyway, it's actually. I'm sorry. This is actually like the end of the show when this is happening.
The crowd sees it.
The crowd, the amp is there's like a 3-foot flame coming out of the fucking amp, and so Johnny's playing, and he's just, and the crowd's going crazy because the amp's on fire and he's still burning and stuff, and they're doing I think it was
Playing slide.
Highway 61
Playing
or something.
slide
Yeah.
or something.
Yeah. So it's so cool. Like on the video, and some stagehand runs out, I think with maybe a fire extinguisher and finally puts it out. But by then, the song's over and the crowd is going nuts. And you see Johnny just get up and he just raises his hand, just like, God, and he doesn't realize his amp has just been on fire. He just thinks, fuck yeah, man, I've just killed that song. They love me. And they're just all like, more fire,
Right.
That's cool.
That's a good one.
Okay.
So, why don't you? How did you meet Johnny? What was your first Johnny encounter, not as a audience member?
Well, it's kind of weird because I always left Johnny alone. He was my idol growing up, and I'm like, something about don't meet your idols or something like that. But I never pursued him as as an artist or to play my guitars, and I can't to this day tell you why. Because I
Just because he was the guy, you want to keep him shrouded in mystery.
It was God.
yeah, it was like maybe you don't want to meet God.
Yeah.
Okay, so the first time I met Johnny, though, there was a show at Madison Square Garden.
Yeah.
It was just a guitar show. It was like not a NAMM show, but this was when they started having like guitar shows, and somehow we ended up Dean Guitars going to.
So I have a question. For being from Illinois and everything, your whole life, what were you doing at Madison Square Garden?
I went to the guitar show.
Oh, it was a guitar show.
Being Dean,
Okay. Oh, so you were there in town, and then
So yeah, they had a guitar show, and we exhibited.
I was like, that's quite a fan to just travel all that way and to go see. I mean, I would have done it from Chicago to New York to see Johnny Winter. at
But
Madison
Johnny
Square
Winter,
Garden.
he had nothing to do with the show.
Right?
Okay. This was a guitar show where you set up guitars and consumers come in and check out your guitars.
Okay.
So it was that kind of deal. And we set up our booth and, showed our guitars. And Johnny Winter walks by. And I'm like, it's Johnny Winter. Skinny as a rail. This was, God, it was.
And what year?
It had to be like pre-Susie,
Okay.
I'm pretty sure.
So you're young.
Yeah, but by the dudes that were with me, it was probably pre-84, 83, somewhere like, 80s. Would that make sense?
Yeah. Okay. I don't know. I'm trying to follow. I sorry, I got your Madison Square Garden story mixed up with 73. I thought you were talking about that.
No,
Like,
that was the amphitheater.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Okay. So we keep rolling?
Yeah.
Okay. So, anyways, so Johnny comes by the booth, and I talked to Johnny, but I don't even think we talked like, hey, want to play my guitars or anything like that. I think it was just like, hey, you're Johnny Winter, and we talked and had a nice, cordial conversation, and then it was it.
Wow.
So, like, once again, every other rock star, hey, check out my
you're
guitars.
signing ZZ Top and the Doobie Brothers, like bang, 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 and then Johnny Winter walks by and you just took it in, yeah.
It was kind of weird. So
do you remember what he looked like though? I mean,
he looked like
was it cut off and like showing the tats and?
I don't remember. All I remember is, every time you saw Johnny, he was skinny as a rail. Okay.
Right. Yeah.
And he looked rock. It was Johnny Winter.
Yeah.
He didn't just dress normal.
No, there's nobody ever. That looked like him.
Right. He played the part 24/7.
Yeah.
Okay. So then years later, he was playing a club in Chicago that had a bowling alley. Right.
Right.
And I just went to the show. By the way, I was with my friend who was president of Lava Lamp.
And the crazy thing is when we toured in these RVs.
Yeah.
And the reason is that you could fly into a major airport, right, to start like a hub of a tour. And there was always a Walmart. I'm sorry, there was always a U-Haul. These RVs are rented by U-Haul.
Right. Yeah.
So they're always by the airports. So you could just take a taxi back in the day before Uber and just go get one of these RVs. We'd go hit the Walmart, and we'd always fucking pick up lava lamps for Johnny. They always had lava lamps on the thing. He loved them.
That's
Yeah.
funny.
Yeah.
When I decked out my apartment, we have a rock and roll Airbnb downtown.
Yeah.
And the first thing I did is bought a bunch of lava lamps.
Rad.
But you had to buy used ones because the new ones sucked.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, my friend was CEO of the company. He sucked. I mean, he didn't suck. The lava lamp sucked. I hope he doesn't see this.
He's gonna see it.
He's no longer president of the company or whatever. But yeah. And by the way, I have 3 pictures in my apartment downtown. 3 main pictures of
Johnny
rock
Winter.
stars.
Yeah.
And guess who it is?
Johnny Winter, and Johnny Winter.
Close.
Johnny Winter, Dimebag Darrell,
Yeah.
and Kim Simmons. I don't know.
Jimi Hendrix.
Okay.
And we'll put up a picture, but yeah, there's and they're like my 3 favorite guitar players of all time. So, anyways, so I'd end up at this club once again. Johnny's playing. No concept of like, I'm gonna like try to
Yeah,
build
we're playing a bowling alley.
Well, it was a cool club, but
Big
part
time.
of it was a
Big
bowling
time
alley.
shit.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was new. It was like a cool facility.
It was.
The guy who built it had a lot of money.
Yeah.
He owns like a major hotel downtown. He actually owns the whole shopping center. But neither here nor there. Although actually here, that's where we met.
Yes.
And you're the one who introduced me to Johnny.
Yes, I am.
Okay, so tell your story.
Well, I mean, that's it. I remember.
We got introduced somehow.
Yeah, the drummer from the opening band. I remember. I think it was him. We were having some beers after the show, and somehow, he maybe knew you or something, and he introduced us, and it was like, you're Dean from Dean Guitars. That kind of blew my mind. I never put it together all these decades that fucking there was a guy. There was actually a guy behind the guy.
A guy named Dean.
Named Dean.
Whoa.
What? Like, I knew the logo, I knew the guitars, I grew up with all that shit,
Just like Mr. Best Buy.
And it kind of blew my mind. I remember like being like, "You're Dean." Okay, now it's all coming together. Okay,
There's a guy, yeah.
it's a guy.
So naming my guitars Dean kind of like,
Wow. Yeah.
it really did have a generic part to it. And then it was
Fair
me
enough.
too. Okay, it's cool. That's good to know.
And I do remember
Cool to
telling
know.
you like something about Shanker, because you had given Shanker, you had done a V for Shanker,
Yeah.
around that time, maybe a little bit earlier, whatever.
Yeah.
And it was really fucked up that Gibson didn't have that, that legacy, or that, the to take care of the people who put their shit on the map.
Right.
And you did it. And I remember telling you that night, I was like, dude, thank you for, because Shanker's my guy too.
Right.
I love him. And you're like, yeah, man. Whatever. And you're like, hey, what's up?
I'm going to put Shanker in my building, in my apartment
You have
downtown.
to, of course. The Shank.
Right.
So, yeah, and I remember you were like, yeah, man, like, how do I get a hold of Johnny? Like what's the deal here? And I said, well, hang on a second. And we went down, and we're just sitting in the parking lot.
In the
In
van.
the RV.
In the RV.
The van, basically a van,
Right.
glorified van. And there you go. I
Yeah.
don't remember,
I remember meeting Johnny and
I kind
saying,
of just, watching.
Yeah. What was
in.
he like?
he was like Johnny. It was, it was everything with Johnny was, yeah. It was all short,
Yeah.
right?
It was really short.
Yeah, everything was just, yeah.
Yeah.
Did he have any recollection of your first encounter or any of that? Or
You didn't
It was all
ask Johnny.
toasted, yeah.
Johnny.
Well, Johnny used to like. There is so I have to kind of plug this too, because a lot of everything that we're talking about is in the Johnny Winter documentary done by my buddy Greg Oliver, who did the Lemmy movie, and he came on tour with us for 3 years or something like that, off and on.
Johnny Winter, Down and Dirty.
Johnny Winter, Down and Dirty, man.
Yeah.
What a great film.
Right.
And if you're a Johnny Winter, I mean, you got to see it. It's fucking awesome. I lived it, and I still watch it. Like, there's things I won't watch because I'm like, well, why would I see that? Like, I don't care. I was there, This, I love it. And I still watch the Johnny Winter Down and Dirty movie always. And so we would do these XM radio, like I think it was called like Bluesville or something like that.
Interviews.
Okay.
Yeah, like we would go to the studio. We would go to, I think it was in D.C. in Washington D.C. It was XM Studios, and we would go to this guy's show, much less like this, and it's in the movie, and the host of it puts it really well. I forget what his name was, but he was a nice guy, and he said, the first year I had Johnny in, Johnny would just answer in one word.
Right.
And then the second year, he came in, he answered in a sentence. And the third year he came in, he was answering in phrases. And then the fourth year he came in, he's telling stories.
Right.
So that's kind of how Johnny opened back up. And the movie, for anybody who is a Johnny Winter fan, I would say watch the movie, watch this podcast, and it kind of tells, the evolution of Johnny, and up until the point, I would say you asked me, what was like kind of the peak, or maybe you asked me what was the peak of all of this, and I would say we hit our stride when we did the David Letterman show. Johnny did the David Letterman show back in the early '80s, and he comes out and he does Johnny Be Good.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Johnny Winter.
One, two, three.
Which was kind of a standard for him. And when we did it, I think we did it like in 2012, I think. And we did Dust My Broom. And so there's all these, this time in between of the first Johnny David Letterman show and the second one. And it was amazing. I was so proud of him. But of course, on the way to the gig, he had lost his voice.
No.
I think he was really nervous, and all the anxiety and stuff. He drove himself crazy, and he couldn't talk. But and if you hear him count off the song, he goes 1, 2, 3. His voice kind of cracks, but he pulls it off, and we got through it. But that was like the pinnacle for me with Johnny from the time I met him when he was just a vegetable.
Yeah. Like, would you have thought he could even do that?
No, never.
Okay.
Never.
Yeah.
Never,
That's really cool.
This is when we really like hit our stride, as a band and everything, and yeah. So
Well,
if do yourselves a favor, watch that David Letterman performance in 2012 or whatever. It's awesome.
Talking to Johnny, I remember he was very confident, and I asked him about the old days, and Johnny knew he was great.
Yeah,
He knew
he had a big ego.
Hey, biggest signing bonus at the time. There's no
He
way
still
you're
thought
ever
he was
going to
the
let
shit.
that go.
But when you talk about the old days, he knew he was great, and he knew he was going to make it. He was maybe hindsight's 20.
No, for sure. He always knew.
He knew he was fucking incredible.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
all that. And I have a question.
Yeah.
Do you know what his first gig was? I don't mean gig. I'm talking about job as a musician.
Well, I know that him and Edgar used to do gigs as kids, playing ukuleles.
He was the band director for who? B.J. Thomas.
I don't know who that is.
Raindrops keep falling on my head.
No shit.
Okay.
Yeah.
He was what?
He was the band director for B.J. Thomas.
B.J. Thomas isn't that like way later? Like, I mean,
I think it was real early. We're going to have to look this up.
maybe.
We might have to cut this segment out after
Well,
we do some
here's the thing.
research.
So I asked Johnny too, like one time I said, hey man, like, did you ever have a nickname? And he goes, yeah, man, Cool Johnny Winter. Cool Johnny. Or no, I'm sorry, Cool Daddy Winter.
Cool
is
Daddy
what-
Winter,
It was
yeah.
Cool Daddy. Yeah, that's what it was. But Johnny goes back, you see like, the eras of him, the suit and tie,
Right.
the pompadour. He's of that era, and the shades, the Ray-Bans or whatever you call them.
When
back
he was
in the-
band director for B.J.
No
Thomas.
shit, that's crazy.
We're gonna have to look it up.
You know, he did a Bruce Willis record, right? The
No.
actor Bruce Willis did a blues record, and Johnny like produced
way.
it and fucking played guitar. Yeah, there's like photos of it and stuff.
A real Renaissance man
Yeah.
of blues, huh?
Yeah,
That's pretty sweet.
yeah, right.
Well, okay. You have a question for? Should I tell? Should I tell
you
my?
know, here's another thing. You know, Salvador Dali wanted to record Johnny's inner workings.
That sounds amazing.
what is
He wanted to stick a microphone up his ass and record him while he did a solo. That's Salvador Dali. Yeah. And I think there's a photo online where there's Salvador Dali, Johnny, and like Ted Nugent.
That's the most bizarre.
Oh, and Andy Warhol.
You know, a friend,
Holy shit.
a friend of mine told me many years ago, and I'll never forget this. He goes, "There's all types. It takes all types of people
Takes all types.
to make a world, and there ain't none missing."
So the crazy thing is like, I kind of just wanted to touch upon is that I love, this is what I love, is the old, you know, you know how like Hendrix played for Little Richard, right? He was the backup guy, and they would wear the suits, and they would do the moves all together and stuff like that. You know, that's like real, like kind of old school, like show business stuff. You have an act, and you have, you know, there's a way to be, and there's a boss, and you're one of the guys. Johnny kind of comes from that era of that. There was certain rules that you had to show business, you know, like don't let them see you drink on stage. That was like you know, a big one. And then you have the Johnny Winter, the psychedelic, you know, era, you know, where it's, you know, the first
Don't let them
you know,
see you
progressive
drop.
blues
Don't let
experiment.
them see you drop acid on
Yeah,
stage.
don't let them see it. Yeah. So you kind of have that Johnny Winter kind of Woodstocky LSD like era. Then the kind of glam rocky 73, right? Those you know, the platforms and the suits and the Susan on stage. Then you have the late 70s where he's producing, you know, Muddy Waters records and face it, Hard Again is one of the greatest records ever. Muddy Waters Hard Again was produced by Johnny Winter and played, you know, Johnny Winter played all over it. Stuff so great. Then you have the 80s Johnny Winter, right?
Right.
So the tattoos and the
Erlewine
Erlewine
guitar.
fucking shit comes in.
Yeah.
Laser.
Erlewine was my competitor.
Yeah.
Because he was making
Yeah.
guitars for Johnny Winter, and so was I.
Yeah.
He was making guitars for Billy Gibbons, and so was I. So
Yeah.
this Dan Erlewine.
When are we gonna get him on the podcast?
What's that? Who?
Dan Erlewine.
Erlewine, yeah.
Why?
Why?
Why not? Because
So I call
I'm
it'd be
joking.
super cool.
So-
He's a-
I have this grandiose idea one day, right?
Okay.
And because, and I have a photo of this. So Johnny's brown Firebird that I used to take care of, I traveled the world with it, basically slept with it next to my bed always. It was, you know, so
he guarded it.
I guarded it with my life. I also have 3 guitar picks from Johnny, thumb picks that we couldn't find anywhere. In my era of working for Johnny, I kept those in my pocket no matter where I went.
Right.
I have one for you, by the way.
Awesome.
And
By the way,
and,
Johnny only played with a thumb pick.
Yeah.
People don't realize it. Everything he did was like this.
yeah, it's so bizarre how he could be so fast and play like that.
He
But,
gave me a guitar lesson, by the way.
You said that earlier, yeah.
I've got it on video.
No shit.
Yeah.
Oh, you have to plug that
punch
in.
that one in.
Punch
Yeah.
that one in, right?
In the RV. Yeah. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, in the RV.
The riff.
Here's the party piece. See, Johnny does the cool. Da-da-da. He does the harmony. Da-da-da. Makes it look so easy. And he's not even using a pick.
It's hard to do that.
Yeah. Wow.
Okay, go on.
So, what was I talking about? Fuck, I
Thumb
don't know.
picks.
Thumb picks.
Was I talking about
Oh,
thumb
the
picks?
guitar. Saving,
I was sleeping by the Firebird.
sleeping with the guitar.
Yeah.
Guarding.
Yeah.
Was it good? No. Go ahead.
So, yeah, no, I was getting to something else. I can't remember. Sorry, guys.
Welcome to the podcast, man.
I lost my train of thought.
Oh,
You know,
okay. Don't show your drinks on.
Oh, for
Right,
fuck's sake.
don't get sloppy.
Yeah,
I think like 2 podcasts ago, you were like, we're going to show Jefferson's every day until we get a Jefferson endorsement.
Oh yeah.
Okay, I have a couple. I have to talk about Susan Winter.
Okay.
Okay, ask me.
Okay.
What about Susan Winter? Say that.
All right. What about Susan Winter?
Okay. Like I said, she was sexy as hell on stage, 1973.
With a
platform
headstock between
shoes.
her legs.
Yeah. It was almost like a thing because he was slinking. He was like a praying mantis.
Well, they
almost.
pulled the midnight special shit off of the air because he bit her tit.
That was
It's
it?
true, and that's why we couldn't find it for years.
Yeah.
Even
What, you
midnight
couldn't
Special-
find her tit?
It was gone. No, yeah, exactly.
Clean off, yeah.
Good one, Dean. But Jesus.
Where'd that part go?
So, the Midnight Special came out with a whole series of stuff.
Yeah.
But Johnny Winters left off of it.
I
Off
did
of the whole
not
DVD
know that, yeah.
collection and everything like that. And
My parents
so
used to tell me
just
about that shit.
recently,
Yeah.
it just appeared on YouTube. I was like, holy shit, it's the Midnight Special
Okay.
shit.
Okay.
But,
Okay.
yeah.
So she's really sexy.
Yeah.
And so
She's basically just playing a
You
cowboy
are-
the whole fucking
Yeah.
time, you know?
you are most impressional when you're like 15 years old, right?
Yeah.
So anyways, so that's ingrained in my brain. The Susan Winter on stage, Johnny Winter, blah blah blah. I end up at Johnny's 70th birthday party. Okay, at BB King's in New York. You were already out of the picture.
I was.
Yeah, you left the
Yeah.
the camp. And so after the show, I'm like in the dressing room, green room, whatever it is, and I'm sitting next to this Susan Winter.
Yeah.
And she's a grandma
Yes.
and very short and kind of, how would you,
Grandmotherly.
grandmotherly, little chunky, right?
Yeah.
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 It happens to
Really
the best of
gruff
us.
voice, like she smoked like every Marlboro.
Like she lived through
Like,
it, yeah.
every Marlboro that was ever made, like fucking.
I would,
rock.
okay, so, but hold on. If I could describe her, she looked like a little old lady.
Okay.
Okay, like your typical little old lady, and it's Johnny's wife. And I'm sitting there talking to her, and stuff's going on, and all of a sudden, like, this image comes back to me. I'm like, wait, she was on stage. That was her.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at her, and the
And
pictures
you're
in my
like
head,
putting it together.
you know.
Yeah.
And it's like, whoa. so,
Yeah.
so I turned to her, I said, Susan, I'm like, you used to like be on stage with Johnny, right? And she looks at me like real sheepish. She's like, yeah.
Yeah.
And that was the end of that conversation. But it was like, whoa, like it was a moment just to be sitting
Yeah.
with Susan. And like I say, when you put up, I wish we had are there current pictures of Susan? I mean, not current, but she's not with us anymore. But I mean, they're recent.
I have no idea.
There's a Google for that.
Okay.
We'll find it. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and I actually don't really have any, even my stuff, I don't think, in my collection. But I remember Susan had pictures of me. I had my ex-wife, who I started dating like around the time of the Johnny stuff. She would come over here to America. She was from Germany, and I remember Susan would take pictures like flowers and random shit, and she would like have pictures of me and my ex, from back in the day. And I always meant to like get a copy of those, but I never did.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway.
Okay,
She was a nice lady, though.
Yeah.
She was very sweet.
Yeah, she was like I said, she was very like.
And she was very reserved and, but she was like one of these people that she'd seen some shit, in her day.
Yeah,
for sure.
If you hung with Johnny Winter, come on.
Exactly.
Yeah,
For sure.
there's no way you hung with Johnny Winter.
And that's another thing too. That the other era too of Johnny, because I was just in New York City. I went to the Met on a day off, and I remember Johnny had a penthouse on the Upper East Side of the park. And I remember I kind of tried to look it up online. I couldn't find it. I think it was like up in the 80s or something. But you have also in the early 80s with Johnny, you have this guy who's also kind of part of the elite, like the Salvador Dalis and the Grace Slicks and these really eccentric kind of people. So he was like right up there in the Manhattan, early 80s kind of, thing. He was the shit,
Right.
How cool.
It's just
the
wild
thing
that
is-
he has so many eras.
Right, but the
Yeah.
other thing is, like, he was from Beaumont, Texas, and he just loved New York. He gravitated to New
did.
York.
Yeah.
And he
Yeah.
He became a city dude.
Yeah.
Always lived in
And
apartments.
I think the penthouse that he had on the Upper East Side, Wayne Gretzky was his neighbor. He had the penthouses up in some building. or whatever.
strange.
And I also heard that Johnny's whole place was black with purple curtains or something like that, purple and black, and it was dark all the time because he couldn't take sunlight because it would, because he was blind.
Because he's albino.
Yeah, being blind.
Yeah.
Any light washes everything out. So
Okay.
the darker things are you can actually make out.
It's
some
funny you
shadows
should
and
mention
shit
that,
like
because when I was a kid, like in that era, I painted my bedroom black.
Yeah.
And my first office at my Dean Guitar Company,
Yeah.
whole place was black. Black desk, black.
Yeah.
And I had some problems, and people said, you need to see a shrink, which I did. And I go to the shrink's office, it's black.
It's black.
And I'm like,
That's amazing.
okay, I'm okay.
Yeah, I'm okay. Who billed who?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, eventually
Yeah.
my life was so, I'm like, why am I going this every week? It's like, I'm paying him money and I'm entertaining him with my stories.
Yeah. No, we're totally in the wrong business. We all should have been.
That's funny.
Shrinks.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you wanted to talk tech?
Well, I got some techie questions.
Oh,
yeah.
shit.
Well, you've worked with like so many insanely influential guitar players, both commercially successful and what people call guitar players,
Sure.
You were saying earlier, I mean, like, yeah, Steve Vai live at the Astoria, like, oh, you were there, the G3s.
Yeah.
I mean, just Mr. Big in general, the Winery Dogs. I want like
Sons of Apollo was another band I worked for recently.
yeah, that's insane.
I worked for Billy and Bumblefoot.
Yeah.
Yeah, for a couple of years there.
So from a
Forgot about that.
from a guitar player's perspective, are there any, of these guitar guys that have either really weird or just really typical setups? Like, who has the weirdest guitar setup or rig that you've been a part of, setting up and taking care of?
Well, actually, Bumblefoot, because he didn't have a rig.
Yeah.
He just had I think he had a Helix, and that's all he had. We had like a Korg wireless. It was also doubled as a tuner, and that would just go right into the guitar, go into that, and out of that into the Helix.
Yeah.
Straight out to front of house.
Okay.
And he didn't even, I don't think he even used monitors. I said, well, what do you do if you need more drums? And he said, I just walk over to the drums.
Yeah. Keeping it simple. Okay. That's one way.
I actually just was texting with him the other night when we did the Starland in Jersey. And I thought he was going to come to the show, but he had to go on do a cruise the next day and fly out of town. But what a great guy! I love Ron, and I've never seen a guitar player like him with the fretless neck and the double neck and everything. He's amazing. It's so fun to watch and a really lovely guy and just so easy to work for. So I would say, that's the most complicated thing I've ever done.
Yeah. But you've, like, as a tech, you've played a lot of, like, these iconic guitars too, right?
I have, of course, yeah.
Well, Johnny Winter's Firebird.
Oh yeah, man.
You know, some of the
Yeah,
I watched him play. I watched him play.
Yeah, I used to actually sound check for Johnny.
yeah.
There's actually video of me, I guess, out there somewhere, but
And he could play, by the way.
you know,
you gotta.
I would, Johnny taught me like this one song, and that was kind of like, the song I would sound check with the band.
Yeah.
And I'd sing it and stuff, but yeah, I mean, I wasn't Vi's guitar tech, but I played through Vi's rig and played his guitars.
Evo and Flow and all that stuff.
I get it. I mean, there's a lot. I get used to a lot. So I love Richie Cossen's like setup. He has a real basic setup. He has his signature guitar, his signature amp, and his pedal. It just his main telly just plays so good.
Yeah.
Not better the one my guitars does it.
No comment. Yeah.
I had to say like probably the funnest rig that is Billy Sheehan.
Well, yeah.
Dude, I love getting on that thing every day and just pissing everybody off. It's just as soon as I just turn that on, it doesn't matter who's talking in the building. It's like you're gonna stop and listen.
Is Billy Sheehan like your longest?
I would think so. I
Yeah.
probably have done more shows with Billy than anybody else.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So what's Sheehan's rig? Like, what's Billy's stuff?
So Billy, what we do is we got his Yamaha Attitude basses. We use the Line 6 G90 wireless system.
That blows my mind.
Goes right into
Yeah.
a Line 6 Helix.
Yeah.
Out of that, we go into Harkey 8500 heads and into Harkey HD 115 cabinets. Yeah, and it's just
Not that complicated.
well, it's years of
him.
honing tone. But I always compare. I like to when I think of Billy, I think of like an Eddie Van Halen, right?
Sure.
Who's
Like, as a guitarist, I would watch him and be inspired.
Of
Like, there's
course,
certain
of
musicians
course.
that you just watch. Like,
Yeah.
as a guitar player, I can watch him or like Jordan Rudess. Like, there's just some, or Charlie Parker, and it's like, holy smokes, they're
Yeah.
so insanely confident and good,
Yeah.
and have their own. Like, there's zero delay between what they're thinking
Yeah.
and what they're putting out.
Richie Cossen's the same way.
Yes.
I mean, he's
Paul
developed
Gilbert, like,
his
Jesus.
his own pedal, his own style. I mean, those three guys. Paul, Billy, Rich. They're just incredible. It's amazing. The tone for days. They're just. Billy is still. He's the one who's more like the tone chaser. He's still trying to.
Well, he's got signature
perfect it,
overdrives and stuff.
Even though it's been perfected
Yeah.
over and over, but he's just a tone chaser, just like Eddie Van Halen always said. I'm just a tone chaser. I just, it's always evolving.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm very thankful. Great guys. My bros, love working for them. Yeah,
Very cool.
There you go.
Yeah.
Well, this is great.
Yeah. It was a fun one.
Yeah.
And we're doing a show here in town.
Right.
And we'll be out there.
And I'm hoping like hell that we could get an invite.
There it is.
How are the accommodations while you were here?
Dude, good question. Because you know what? The bed was so comfortable. I was like, what kind of fucking sheets are these? So I found it. I was peeling out like the thing, like fucking taking photos of the tag. Like, I got to get some of these for my fucking room, And the towels. I asked Susie earlier. I was like, dude, your towels are awesome. And she's like, wait, what towels? And I was like, she goes, the waffle towels? I said, yeah. She goes, oh, our kids got us those,
My son.
So yeah, I took photos of the tag because I was like, when I get home, I'm fucking getting these towels, man.
Yeah.
So thank you for so much being for your hospitality. I feel like I'm at home. This is like amazing, and so
Well, Susie's cooking good.
yes, it was amazing. yeah. I mean, seriously, yes, love you guys. So thank you so much for having me.
I got a playmate that cooks.
Yeah. Landed the big
Good
one.
work if you can get it.
All right. Mostly vegan these days, but no, she's because of me.
All right. Well,
Okay, so I think we have a little bit of a. You've been amazing,
Thank you.
both as a guest on the show and a guest not on the show.
Yeah.
But we have to tell people, if you like the podcast,
Subscribe.
subscribe.
I'm
Yeah.
a subscriber.
By the way, that's how I say. He
Like,
brings me up and
yeah.
he says, "Hey, I love the podcast,
Yeah.
Jeff." And I'm like, "I want you on the podcast when you come to town." This was
Oh,
like
dude,
this.
I was hooked on the first episode. Dusty Hill, come on.
Yeah. Like, subscribe, ring that bell.
Ring
keep
the bell,
watching.
do
Hey,
everything.
guys.
All I ever wanted to be was famous. And if people subscribe, I can get.
Well, that's why
can get
I
famous.
wanted, when and I was thinking the same thing. I didn't want to ask, but when you were like, "Hey, maybe you want to be on the podcast," I was like, "Fuck yeah, man, I'll
We're
be there."
open, ask, get on.
So that was my thing. As to help you out, however, I could do my part because I think it's such a great thing. I love your story, So
you.
I was very interested. I'm waiting for the second, half of the NAM, story.
We just punched that one a couple days ago.
Oh yeah.
He's got to edit it, but it'll be out probably.
Okay, cool.
It might be out
Yeah.
before this one.
Listen, I'm a fan. So.
Okay, we could officially introduce Tony now.
Yeah, we got, Tony's in the back over there.
Yeah, Tony. Tony is our producer, engineer,
Editor, whatever.
edit, real time.
Yeah.
I mean, this show is edited in real time.
Yeah. Except for when we get drink refills, but that's something else. Yeah.
Okay, I don't.
You don't drink? Isn't that your third glass?
No, it's my first
You're
glass.
wasted,
And by the
man.
way, I was so tired. I didn't. I downed two lattes.
Oh, dude, I don't know how you went to work today. I was
this podcast.
I slept until noon. Susie took me to White Castle
Nice.
by the lake, and I came back and took a nap.
You have to after White Castle.
He lives the rock and roll life. I've got a 9 to 5 job.
Yeah.
And we got 9 to 5 jobs.
All right. Well, subscribe, ring the bell. And,
Okay.
we'll be back next week.
Sounds good.
Check out those Dean Zelinsky guitars too.
Okay.
Dope.
Yeah.
Jeff, it's been great.
Hey man, love you, bro.
Love you too. Bye bye.
Okay.
Nice.
That's a podcast.
Hell yeah.